There is a number that should make you uncomfortable, a proportion so obscene it converts abstraction into something visceral. Daniel Ek, the founder and executive chairman of Spotify, earns approximately 2.5 billion times more than the average artist on his platform. By late 2025, Ek's net worth reached $8.7 billion, making him the wealthiest individual in music history, surpassing Paul McCartney's $1.3 billion and Jay-Z's $2.5 billion. This figure alone positions him above every musician who has ever lived, yet he has never recorded a song, never performed on stage, never created the product that flows through the servers he controls. The question vibrates in the silence. How does one construct a fortune 2.5 billion times greater than those who create the very product you distribute? The answer requires us to examine not a person, but an architecture, a system designed with mathematical precision to concentrate value at the point of access rather than the point of creation. Ek stands on stage at technology conferences, speaking eloquently about empowering artists and democratizing music, while his net worth updates in real time, climbing at a rate that would require an average Spotify artist to generate streams for several thousand lifetimes to match a single year of his wealth accumulation. This is not a story about greed, though greed certainly plays its role. This is a forensic examination of how salvation became the most profitable narrative of the 21st century, and how the architecture of rescue was constructed to extract rather than to save. Chronicle of a manufactured crisis. To understand how we arrived at this equation, we must return to the moment when piracy became the most valuable word in the music industry. The early 2000s witnessed the rise of Napster, Kazaa, and BitTorrent networks. And the industry response was not adaptation, but declaration of apocalypse. Record executives proclaimed the death of music, the collapse of an entire economic sector, the end of artistic sustainability. The narrative was amplified with surgical precision. Every downloaded song was framed as a stolen album, every peer-to-peer user as a criminal undermining civilization itself. Yet beneath this rhetoric, the industry was not dying, but transforming. Concert revenues were rising, synchronization licensing was expanding into television and advertising, and direct-to-fan models were emerging through platforms like Bandcamp. The music industry's total revenues had declined from their late 1990s peak, certainly, but the notion of existential crisis was more useful than accurate. Crisis creates urgency, and urgency creates leverage for those offering solutions. Daniel Ek understood this leverage with remarkable clarity. His background was not in music curation, but in digital distribution optimization. After dropping out of the KTH Royal Institute of Technology after just 8 weeks, he worked as CTO of Stardoll, founded the advertising company Advertigo, and most critically, served as CEO of mTorrent, one of the world's most popular BitTorrent clients. This experience provided him with privileged insight into how network efficiency could be monetized, how the very infrastructure of piracy could be repurposed for profit. In 2006, together with Martin Lorentzen, Ek incorporated Spotify, a B in Stockholm, with a singular vision: create a legal service that functioned with the speed and convenience of a peer-to-peer network. The genius of this approach was not technological innovation, but narrative positioning. Spotify would not compete with piracy through superior artist compensation or ethical distribution models, but through superior user experience. Legality itself became the product, independent of whether that legality was economically just for the creators whose work filled the platform's servers. Artists, traumatized by years of piracy rhetoric and declining physical sales, saw Spotify as a lifeboat in a manufactured storm. The industry embraced the platform not because it solved the fundamental problem of fair compensation, but because it provided a legal framework that allowed revenue generation to resume, even if that revenue flowed primarily to those who controlled access rather than those who created content. At the core of Spotify's economic architecture lies the pro-rata payment model, a mathematical structure that appears fair in abstraction but functions as a systematic value extraction mechanism at scale. Unlike a direct sale model where a consumer purchases a specific album and the revenue flows to that artist, Spotify aggregates all subscription and advertising income into a common pool. After retaining approximately 30% for operational costs and profit, the remaining 70% is distributed to rights holders based on their market share of total platform streams. The formula that governs this distribution is deceptively simple. An artist's monthly royalty equals their number of streams divided by the total platform streams multiplied by the total revenue pool. This creates what economists call a winner-take-all dynamic, where artists at the top absorb the vast majority of the pool, while independent and niche artists watch their per-stream value dilute as the denominator grows with each day's massive content upload. In 2024, the number of artists on the platform reached 12 million, intensifying competition for shares of a pool that grows more slowly than the number of hands reaching into it. The payment rates reveal the system's inherent inequity. Spotify pays between $0.003 and $0.005 per stream, significantly lower than Tidal's $0.0125 to $0.013 or Apple Music's $0.008 to $0.01. This disparity exists largely because Spotify maintains 376 million ad-supported free users whose streams generate between 10 and 20 times less revenue than premium subscribers. The platform's business model depends on converting free users to paid subscriptions, but in the meantime, those free streams dilute the value of every artist's work. The mathematics become even more stark when examining income distribution. According to Spotify's own Loud and Clear reports from 2024 and 2025, only 70 artists earned more than $10 million annually, representing 0.00058% of the 12 million artists on the platform. Only 1,450 artists earned more than $1 million, and only 12,500 earned more than $100,000. This means that 98.67% of artists on Spotify earned less than $1,000 per year from the platform. In 2024, Spotify implemented a policy refusing to pay royalties on songs with fewer than 1,000 annual streams, effectively demonetizing 80% of all songs on the platform and reducing millions of creators to $0 earners. The system is not broken, it is functioning exactly as designed, to concentrate value in whoever controls access, not in whoever creates content. While artists calculate whether they can afford to continue making music, Daniel Ek converts streams into personal patrimony through a mechanism unavailable to the creators who fuel his platform: stock liquidation. Since mid-2023, Ek has sold Spotify shares worth $724 million. In March 2025 alone, he sold 50,000 shares at $569.48 each for $28.5 million. In February 2025, another 60,000 shares at $621.66 for $37.3 million. These transactions occur in a context where Ek receives no base salary, instead tying his compensation to user growth and subscriber targets. Yet the magnitude of these stock sales represents value extraction on a scale that dwarfs even the platform's most successful artists. Music royalty analyst Hunter Giles calculated that Ek's stock sales over a 12-month period were hypothetically equivalent to 115 billion streams, which would make him the most successful artist in history if those earnings came from music rather than equity markets. The contrast becomes visceral when we examine specific comparisons. What Ek earns in a single hour from his accumulated wealth exceeds what an artist with 50,000 monthly listeners earns in an entire year. While Ek purchased his fifth luxury property, 4,000 artists deleted their Spotify accounts, unable to sustain the economic reality of a platform that had promised them salvation. The artist ranked number 10,000 on Spotify's earnings list generated approximately $131,000 in 2024, a figure that seems encouraging until we recognize this represents gross payment to rights holders. After record label participation, typically ranging from 70% to 85%, the individual artist may receive a fraction insufficient to sustain a professional career without constant touring or merchandise sales. Ek's public narrative remains one of democratization and artist empowerment. In interviews, he speaks passionately about his love for music and his commitment to creating opportunities for creators. Yet his personal investments tell a different story. Through his investment firm, Prima Materia, Ek committed 100 million euros to Helsing, a European defense technology company specializing in artificial intelligence for military applications, later leading a 600 million euro funding round in 2025. This decision triggered boycotts from independent artists, particularly in regions like New Zealand, where musicians withdrew their catalogues, stating they did not want their work contributing to financing the weapons industry. The narrative of saving music was replaced in critical circles with the narrative of a CEO who uses music's profits to fund warfare, exacerbating the perception of Spotify as a purely extractive entity. The question that haunts the streaming economy is not whether the current model is unfair, but whether any version of this model could ever sustain a working-class musician. The mathematics are unforgiving. To earn minimum wage in the United States, roughly $15,000 annually, an artist must generate approximately 3 to 5 million streams per year, assuming they retain 100% of the royalty, which almost no artist does. To match the average tech CEO salary would require hundreds of millions of streams annually. To reach even 2 billion 500th of Daniel Ek's wealth would require multiple lifetimes of maximum platform success. The structural problem lies in music's commodification as infinite inventory. In 1995, an album cost between $15 and $20 and granted ownership of approximately 40 to 60 minutes of music. In 2025, 1,000 streams of that same album generates between $3 and $5 for the rights holder, and the listener owns nothing while gaining access to everything. This shift from ownership to access fundamentally altered the value proposition, devaluing individual songs while increasing the value of the intermediary platform that provides access. Historical comparison reveals the magnitude of this transformation. The music industry generated $38 billion in revenue at its 1999 peak, primarily through physical sales, where artists received between 10% and 20% of retail price directly tied to units sold. In 2024, the industry generated $29.6 billion, a decline of approximately 22% in nominal terms and significantly more in inflation-adjusted terms. Yet this revenue is now distributed through a pro-rata model that severs the direct connection between a listener's choice and an artist's compensation. A fan who listens exclusively to one artist for an entire month contributes the same subscription fee to that artist as a fan who listens to 1,000 different artists, because the revenue pool is divided by total platform streams rather than individual user behavior. The revelation that should disturb us most is this: the model is not broken, it is functioning precisely as designed. The concentration of value in platform owners rather than content creators is not a bug, but the fundamental architecture of the streaming economy. Architecture of complicity. The responsibility for this economic structure extends far beyond Daniel Ek. Major record labels negotiated the streaming deals that established the pro-rata model, accepting these terms in exchange for equity stakes in Spotify itself. Universal Music Group, Sony Music, and Warner Music Group collectively owned approximately 17% of Spotify at its 2018 IPO, a position that generated billions in returns when the stock price appreciated. These labels prioritized their own institutional value extraction over the compensation of artists signed to their rosters. Perhaps most significantly, listeners have internalized that unlimited access for $10.99 per month, or free with advertisements, represents the appropriate price for infinite music. This normalization of devaluation makes advocating for higher subscription prices or per-stream rates politically difficult. When everyone is complicit, the question of who is responsible becomes nearly impossible to answer, which is precisely what allows the system to persist unchallenged. Alternative models existed and were deliberately rejected. Bandcamp implemented a direct-to-fan system where artists receive 82% of digital sales and 85% of physical sales, creating sustainable income for tens of thousands of independent musicians. User-centric payment models, where subscription fees are distributed only to the artists a subscriber actually listens to rather than pooling all revenue, have been proposed and tested in limited markets, demonstrating potential for more equitable distribution. The cultural cost of this economic architecture extends beyond individual financial hardship. Entire genres that do not generate massive stream counts have been effectively demonetized, pushing jazz, experimental music, and regional folk traditions to the margins of algorithmic recommendation systems. The homogenization of music towards streaming-optimized formats, shorter songs designed for playlist placement, and algorithmic composition created specifically to generate revenue without royalty obligations to human musicians represents a futures contract we signed without reading the terms. There is a generation of artists who never attempted to make a living from music because they performed the calculation and recognized its impossibility. The uncomfortable question persists. Have we traded the possibility of a musical middle class for the convenience of unlimited streaming? And if so, was anyone consulted before that transaction was executed? Spotify reported 640 million monthly active users in 2024 and continues expanding into podcasts, audiobooks, and AI-generated content designed to reduce dependency on expensive licensed music catalogs. Daniel Ek announced he would step down as CEO while maintaining his position as executive chairman and his 41.6% voting control, ensuring continuity of vision and capital allocation strategy regardless of operational leadership changes.